Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Of course, with Season 2 Reloaded and the whole mid-season update for Warzone, we saw a handful of gameplay changes, of weapon changes added in. We saw some attachment changes, some overall weapon tuning, and some weapon changes, and we got the addition of the Armaguera 43 as well. And today, like we do anytime there's a major weapon tuning update, we are going over the new meta. What guns are top tier meta weapons? What guns are now competitive? What got worse? What got better? As we break it all down today, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, or if you have not already subscribed, around 55% of viewers watching are not already subbed, and every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, tips. You're gonna find it all right here. Also, right now, all weekend long until I think Tuesday morning, my G Fuel discount code WhosImmortal is gonna get you 30% off your entire orders. So if you want to grab a new tub, a shaker cup, a starter pack, anything like that, Code WhosImmortal has you covered. So we are back here on my tier list of all the weapons in Warzone. We got like 120 plus weapons on this list at this point. I also have my handy dandy notes, aka my Word document of all the changes that went live in the Season 2.5 update. First things first, like I said, we got a brand new weapon. We've got the Armaguera 43, and this one is a very easy landing spot, right? Usually with the new weapons, it's like, okay, is this like borderline top tier meta? Is this just viable? This one is an absolute beast. All right, close range, this thing fries. It has a little bit of recoil because the fire rate's pretty insane, but in those 0 to 20 meter fights, it is absolutely dominant. I'm loving this thing right now. Easily a top tier meta SMG. Easily top tier meta, no brainer, no doubt in my mind. Now let's get into what ended up changing with these patch notes and if it actually adjusted the meta in any major or significant ways. First up, the Vargo got a slight nerf. It got a neck multiplier buff, but overall it got a slight damage nerf. Is it enough to make it a competitive weapon versus a top tier weapon? In my mind, no. It is still right there with the C58 and the XM4. Previously, it was like right there with the Cold War AK. Now it's just slightly worse than it was before, but nothing too drastic or too major. It easily is still one of the top tier weapons that is very easy to use, low recoil, but really good velocity, really good range, and a really good TTK over that range. We also saw a slight change to the Volk to make the recoil a little bit easier. In my opinion, that's not like a significant enough buff to make it a top tier weapon. It's still very good. It's like a sniper support, competitive close range AR, but nothing too crazy. There were also surprisingly quite a few changes to the Marksman Rifles from Vanguard. The G43 got a slightly better velocity. Personally though, I'm still not super sold on this weapon. I don't think it's anything special. The M1 Grant also got better velocity and a better ADS speed, but again, not super sold, especially because it uses sniper ammo. It's just not that much of a competitive weapon versus something like a DMR, which, you know, is a lot more viable because it takes rifle ammo, so you got more of that, and just in general, it seems a little bit more consistent, so I don't think that changes either. One thing I will say is the SVT got better velocity, and this thing, surprisingly, as awkward as it is to use, if you are a good player and you can get that fast trigger finger off and like consistently spam a single shot weapon in close range fights, the SVT isn't all that bad, surprisingly. Like, it actually has a wild TTK pretty much at any range, but especially in some close and medium range fights. The velocity change with this update doesn't really affect those as much as it would long range, but it is a sort of sleeper gun. It's a very high risk, high reward, high skill gap weapon, sort of like the FAL, but it does have some potential, so I feel like it's worth sort of bringing this up into competitive. Now, they also mentioned that the Vanguard Shotguns got a 10% damage buff. Again, that's not really something that to me sets them apart from being, you know, significantly better than the Origin or the R90. Like, really, when it comes down to it right now, there's shotgun meta in general, like you can see, it doesn't really have much going on, right? All the shotguns are very mediocre as it stands. The Gallo is all right. The Jack 12 is decent. Like, I'd say that's probably the best of all of them, but it's not like night and day Jack 12 versus something like a Gracie Auto or an Einhorn Revolving, you know, which I actually do have in competitive right now because it still is semi-decent. The shotgun meta just isn't really anything crazy though, and I don't think that 10% damage buff is going to do much. Now, the Sten, it actually ended up getting an ammo upgrade. That said, basically, like, the capacity for all the mags got slightly bigger. They're still not, you know, big enough, especially with the health increase here. Small mag weapons really do suffer, and I don't really feel like getting 6 extra bullets in a 32 round versus a 36 round mag or a 38 round mag is really that worth it. So I unfortunately, as much as the Sten is a very fun weapon to use, I don't think that really moves either. Now here's an interesting one. The well gun got a lot of changes. It got a fire rate nerf, a recoil nerf. The shrouded barrel got a nerf to its recoil control. The 45-48 round mags actually got a visual recoil buff. And the Garanko 40 round mags got several nerfs. So a lot of changes to the core meta aspects of the well gun. That said, to me now, it's more in line with like the PPSH. Before, it was right there with the Owen gun as like the top tier SMG. Now it's just gone down one tier. So like the Owen gun is number one, and the PPSH and the well gun are right there with it. The Type 100 we'll get to in a moment, also right there with it. So to me, it's still a top tier meta SMG. It's just not the obvious number one choice as the best SMG in the game. All Vanguard Snipers I currently have in competitive, the Type 99, the Car 98K, and the 3-line. The flinch is now less harsh on them essentially. But it's still not gonna change the fact that they don't have insane velocity or insane damage over range. Like, they're just not that consistent, unfortunately. They do need some damage changes, in my opinion, to ever make it into the top tier meta with the Car and the Swiss. So for now, I think those also stay. Then we get to the Type 100, which is probably one of the more interesting changes, and the last main change before we talk about the general layout here and what I think the 300 health change does to certain things. But the Type 100 on the rapid barrel specifically got a visual recoil buff, so it's easier to use now, or easier to see when using. And that, to me, while I've tested a little bit and it does feel slightly better, it's still a harder weapon to use. But man, the TTK is absurd. It is so fast that it is a hard to use weapon, but if you can master it, it is hard to beat. So Type 100 definitely still staying top meta, and I think now it is sort of gunning for that number one spot as the best powerful SMG in the game. Armaguera is sort of challenging that though. Now, outside of the specific weapon tuning, I do like to go through and sort of talk more about, okay, have we seen some adjustments here that would change anything? Obviously, the 300 health in core battle royale does impact things quite a bit, including certain weapons on this list that probably are not going to be as good as they are now. That primarily relates to weapons that are already lower tiers on the list, like the Uzi, for instance. I feel like with 300 health, probably unfortunately drops down to below average, just because the 32 round AE mags that make it good are 32 rounds, which is just not good for 300 health, because if you miss shots, you're getting punished severely. So something like that definitely suffers here. On the flip side, you know, larger mag weapons like, say, for instance, the MG42 now is looking a little bit more helpful because you have such a large mag and good damage. That and the DP27 both, especially the DP, as we talked about previously with its damage, I feel like honestly is really starting to become a top meta weapon. Especially, ideally, we'll see a Bren nerf sometime soon. I was expecting to see the Bren finally drop down into competitive. They didn't even touch the thing in the update, which is kind of unfortunate, but the DP27 is right there with the Bren, actually beats it in some cases, and with the larger magazine that it has now with this 300 health, it definitely should be a top tier option. I also think the STG here, while it wasn't really touched here, does suffer a bit because over range, it's not going to be able to compete with things like the XM4, like the Cold War AK. So to me, that's going to drop down a little bit. The Automaton, I would love to have up here in top meta. It's going to be, you know, a struggle though, using a weapon that has that slower TTK but better recoil over range. Yeah, it's easier to use, but the TTK when you're landing your shots is not going to be nearly as good compared to some of these Cold War rifles or even the Bren right now, which is unfortunate, but that's just the case with 300 health. The Cooper as well. This is a surprising one, but we've talked about it on graphs previously. With this health increase, yeah, the Cooper is great from 0 to 20 meters. It's a decent option. We also have really good subs though that offer better mobility, so it's tough to choose between those. But overall as a rifle, the Cooper I think also falls to competitive, because with 300 health past 22 meters, I think it is, it's just not even close to the AMAX, to the AK, to the C58, the Vargo, the XM4, the Bren. There's just no competing, right? So while it is good up close, I don't think that's good enough to make it a top tier meta weapon at this point. We are getting close though. I think we need some adjustments now because the health to, you know, maybe help out some of those small mag weapons like the Scar and the Odin and the Uzi. Even like the ISO and the Fennec are probably going to suffer a bit because the fire rate's too much for that magazine capacity. But then other guns like the DP27 really see increases in effectiveness because of that. But I think we need a tuning pass based around the 300 health and making weapons more competitive there. And we should see ideally more weapons drop out of top meta into competitive. And in that case, that's the best meta, right? When there's very little weapons up here and a lot of weapons here, that's when things are going to be in their best spot yet. And I think we are trending towards that We got to see some changes to the Bren though, hopefully soon. But that said, those to me are the best weapons to be running after the mid-season update and after Season 2 Reloaded. And that is going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, tips. You're going to find it all right here. So be sure to subscribe with those notifications turned on. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.